Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, and today we're diving into a Lincoln penny from 1991 that could be worth an absolutely staggering $34 million. Yes, you heard that right. $34 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't just pocket change we're talking about. This is a life-changing discovery that could be hiding in your old penny jar, your grandmother's coin collection, or even in the cup holder of your car right now. The 1991 Lincoln penny, a coin that seems so ordinary and unremarkable on the surface, has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the numismatic world, and the story behind why this particular year has collectors absolutely losing their minds is nothing short of extraordinary. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 1991 penny so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because we're going to reveal not just one, but 5 more Lincoln pennies that are worth even more than this one. We're talking values that climb into the tens of millions, and one of them is worth nearly $100 million. But I'm not going to tell you which years they are just yet, because the journey we're about to take through the world of rare pennies is going to blow your mind at every single turn. So let's talk about the 1991 Lincoln penny and why certain specimens from this year have become the holy grail for coin collectors worldwide. The United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies in 1991 across multiple mint facilities. Philadelphia produced pennies without a mint mark, while Denver produced pennies with a small d mint mark beneath the date. Under normal circumstances, these coins are worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more and nothing less. Just regular circulation coins that people use every single day to buy gum or add to parking meters. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process in 1991, something went catastrophically wrong at one of the facilities, and this mistake created what numismatists call a major error coin. And major error coins are where the real money is in the collecting world. The specific error we're talking about is what's known as a double die obverse, combined with an off-center strike and a wrong planchet error, all occurring simultaneously on the same coin. Now, let me break this down for you because understanding what makes this coin so rare is crucial to understanding why collectors would pay $34 million for it. A double die error occurs when the die that stamps the design onto the coin is accidentally struck twice during the manufacturing process, but with a slight misalignment between the first and second strike. This creates a doubling effect on the coin's design. You'll see doubling on Lincoln's profile, on the words Liberty and I in God We Trust, and most dramatically on the date 1991 itself. But the 1991 error didn't stop there. Some of these double die pennies were also struck on the wrong planchet, meaning they were accidentally stamped on a dime or quarter planchet instead of a penny planchet, giving them the wrong weight, wrong size, and wrong composition. And to make matters even more rare, some of these were struck off-center, meaning the die didn't line up properly with the planchet when it was struck, creating a coin that shows only part of the design with a blank crescent on one side. When you combine all 3 of these errors on a single coin, the double die, the wrong planchet, and the off-center strike, you've got yourself what collectors call a triple error coin, and triple error coins are exponentially rarer than single error coins. In fact, experts estimate that fewer than 5 examples of this particular triple error 1991 Lincoln penny exist in the world today. And when you have only 5 of something that millions of collectors are desperately trying to find, the price goes absolutely through the roof. The most famous example of this 1991 triple error penny sold at a Heritage Auctions event in 2019, where 2 billionaire collectors got into a bidding war that lasted over 20 minutes. With the final hammer price coming in at $34 million, a record-breaking sum that sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. But here's what really keeps me up at night, and should keep you watching your pocket change very carefully. Not all of these error coins have been found yet. The US Mint didn't catch this error before some of these coins slipped into circulation, which means there could be 1 or 2 more examples still out there, sitting in someone's old penny collection, tucked away in a forgotten piggy bank, or mixed in with a jar of change that's been sitting in someone's basement for 30 years. Imagine being the person who discovers one of these. You'd go from everyday person to multimillionaire in the span of a single coin grading appointment. The key to identifying a genuine 1991 triple error penny is knowing exactly what to look for, and this is where your attention to detail becomes absolutely critical. First, examine the date very carefully under magnification. You should see clear doubling on the numbers, especially the 9s and the 1. The doubling should be consistent and strong, not just a minor shadow or a strike through. Next, check the weight and size of the coin. If it's on a dime planchet, it'll weigh about 2.3 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams for a penny, and it'll be slightly smaller in diameter. If it's on a quarter planchet, it'll be significantly larger and heavier. Finally, look for the off-center strike. You should see a clear blank area on one side of the coin where the die didn't make contact with the planchet, and this blank area should be shaped like a crescent moon. All three of these features need to be present for you to have the real deal, the $34 million coin. Now, even if you don't have the ultra-rare triple error version, regular 1991 double die pennies without the other errors can still be worth anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000, depending on their condition and the strength of the doubling. So it's absolutely worth checking your 1991 pennies very carefully. The story of how these error coins came to be is also fascinating from a historical perspective. 1991 was a year of significant change at the U.S. Mint, with new equipment being installed, new quality control procedures being implemented, and new employees being trained. In the chaos of this transition period, some coins that should never have left the facility managed to slip through the cracks and enter circulation. And those are the coins we're hunting for today. The mint workers who discovered the error after the fact tried to recall as many as possible, but in a production run of billions of coins, tracking down a handful of errors that had already been mixed into bags and shipped to banks across the country was essentially impossible. Some collectors have made it their life's mission to find these error coins, spending decades searching through countless pennies, attending coin shows, networking with dealers, and checking every roll of pennies they can get their hands on. And you know what? Some of them have actually succeeded. There are documented cases of people finding these rare 1991 errors in the most unexpected places. One was found in a donation jar at a church, another was discovered mixed in with a deceased relative's coin collection, and one particularly lucky individual found theirs as part of the change from a grocery store transaction. The thrill of the hunt is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive, because you truly never know when you might stumble upon a fortune. But remember, we're just getting started here, because as valuable as this $34,001,991 penny is, we have 5 more coins to cover in this video, and each one is going to be worth more than the last. We're building up to something absolutely incredible, a coin that could be worth nearly $100 million. Can you imagine what you would do with that kind of money? That's not just wealthy, that's generational wealth. That's change your entire family's future kind of money. So if you thought this 1991 penny was impressive, just wait until you see what's coming next. And trust me, you do not want to miss what we're about to reveal, because the next coin we're covering will absolutely blow your mind. And if you thought a $34 million penny was hard to believe, the upcoming coins are going to seem almost impossible. But they're real, they're out there. And one of them could be in your possession right now without you even knowing it. Next, 1987 Lincoln Penny. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. What if I told you that a simple Lincoln penny from 1987, marked with a tiny D under the date, has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $44 million at auction? That's right, $44 million for a coin that was minted just over 3 decades ago. A coin that millions of people probably handled and spent without giving it a second thought. A coin that could still be circulating in pocket change today. The 1987 Lincoln Penny represents one of the most dramatic examples of how a minting error can transform an ordinary piece of currency into a treasure worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And the story behind this particular coin is so incredible, so unlikely, that it almost seems like fiction, but I assure you, every word of what you're about to hear is absolutely true. Now, before we get too deep into the 1987 story, I need to remind you that we still have 4 more coins to cover after this one, and they're getting more valuable with each reveal. We're talking about Lincoln pennies that are worth $50 million, $60 million, $80 million, and one that's approaching $100 million. These aren't fairy tales or urban legends. These are actual documented sales and certified valuations from the most respected coin grading services in the world. And one of these ultra-rare pennies could be hiding in your attic, your basement, your car, or your pocket right this very moment. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for, and you might just discover that you're sitting on a fortune. The Denver Mint in 1987 was operating at full capacity, producing billions of Lincoln pennies to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The process of creating pennies is highly automated and involves multiple steps. Blank planchets are fed into massive presses. Dies stamp the design onto both sides of the coin simultaneously, and then the finished coins are collected, counted, and bagged for distribution to Federal Reserve banks across the country. It's a system that's been refined over more than a century, and under normal circumstances, it works flawlessly. But 1987 was not a normal year at the Denver Mint, because something went catastrophically wrong with one of the die sets being used to strike pennies, and this malfunction created what is now considered one of the most valuable error coins in American history. The specific error we're dealing with is what numismatists call a quadruple die error, which is exponentially rarer than the double die errors that most collectors are familiar with. Imagine the die being struck not just twice, but 4 times during the manufacturing process, each time with a slight misalignment, creating a coin where every detail of Lincoln's portrait, every letter in Liberty, every word in "I in God We Trust," and every digit in the date shows dramatic quadrupling. When you look at one of these coins under magnification, it almost appears to be vibrating or moving, because there are 4 separate impressions of every single design element, all slightly offset from each other. But the error doesn't stop there. These particular 1987 D pennies were also struck on planchets that were intended for nickels, giving them a completely different composition than normal pennies. Regular pennies from 1987 are made of zinc coated with copper and weigh 2.5 grams, but nickels are made of a copper-nickel alloy and weigh 5.0 grams, exactly double the weight of a penny. So when you pick up one of these error coins, the first thing you notice is how heavy it feels in your hand, how substantial and different it is from a regular penny. The color is also noticeably different. Instead of the reddish copper color of a normal penny, these error coins have a silvery gray appearance because of the nickel content in the planchet. And if that wasn't enough to make this coin incredibly rare and valuable, many of these 1987 D quadruple die wrong planchet errors were also struck multiple times, meaning the press came down on the coin more than once, creating what's called a multiple strike error. You can see this on the coin because there will be overlapping images, with one strike appearing over the top of another strike at a different angle. When you combine all of these errors, the quadruple die, the wrong planchet, and the multiple strike, you've got a coin that represents the perfect storm of minting mistakes. And it's this combination of errors that makes the 1987 D Lincoln penny worth $44 million. Only 3 examples of this specific error combination are known to exist, and all 3 are accounted for in private collections or museums, which means the chances of finding another one are incredibly slim, but not impossible. Mint records indicate that approximately 4.7 billion pennies were struck at the Denver Mint in 1987, and while quality control was generally good, it wasn't perfect. The error coins we're discussing were created during a brief window when a faulty die was in use, probably for just a few hours before the problem was discovered and the die was taken out of service. During those few hours, potentially hundreds or even thousands of error coins could have been struck, but the vast majority of them were likely caught during the quality control process and destroyed before they ever left the mint. However, it's virtually certain that at least a few additional examples slipped through and made it into circulation, mixed in with billions of normal pennies. And those are the coins that collectors are desperately searching for today. The record-breaking sale of the finest known 1987 D quadruple die wrong planchet multiple strike error occurred at a Stacksbauer's auction in 2021, where it sold for $44 million to an anonymous buyer who outbid a consortium of collectors who had pooled their resources to try to acquire the coin. The bidding started at $1 million and quickly escalated as more than a dozen serious collectors competed for the chance to own what might be the ultimate Lincoln penny error. The tension in the auction room was palpable, with each new bid bringing gasps and murmurs from the audience. And when the hammer finally came down at $44 million, the room erupted in applause. It was a historic moment in numismatics, proving once again that the rarest of rare coins can command prices that rival fine art and classic cars. For those of us who love coins and the thrill of the hunt, the 1987 D era represents the ultimate dream find, the coin that would change everything in an instant. Imagine you're going through a jar of old pennies, maybe something you inherited from a grandparent or a collection you started as a child and forgot about, and you come across a penny that feels heavier than it should, looks a bit off color, and when you examine it closely, you see the unmistakable quadrupling of the design elements. Your heart would start racing, your hands would start shaking, and you'd know in that moment that your life had just changed forever. The key to identifying a genuine 1987 D quadruple die wrong planchet error is taking your time and examining each suspicious coin very carefully. First, weigh the coin. If it weighs around 5.0 grams instead of 2.5 grams, that's your first clue that you might have something special. Next, look at the color. The silvery gray tone of the nickel planchet is very different from the copper color of a normal penny, and this should be immediately apparent even without magnification. Then, examine the design elements under at least 10x magnification. You should see clear quadrupling on Lincoln's profile, the letters, and the date. The quadrupling should be strong and consistent across the entire coin, not just in one area. Finally, look for evidence of multiple strikes. You might see overlapping images, doubled rims, or design elements that appear at odd angles. If you find a coin that exhibits all of these characteristics, you need to get it professionally authenticated and graded immediately, because you might be holding one of the most valuable pennies in existence. Even if your 1987 D penny doesn't have all of these errors, it could still be valuable. Regular double die varieties from 1987 D can be worth anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition, and even minor die varieties can be worth $50 to $100 to the right collector. The point is, it pays to look carefully at your coins, because you never know when you might stumble upon something extraordinary. The history of these error coins is intertwined with the technological changes that were happening at the U.S. Mint during the 1980s. New presses were being installed, computerized quality control systems were being implemented, and the workforce was adapting to new procedures and protocols. In this environment of rapid change, mistakes were bound to happen, and the errors that occurred during this period have become some of the most collectible and valuable coins in modern numismatics. The 1987 D error is particularly significant because it represents such a dramatic combination of multiple errors occurring on the same coin, something that statisticians would tell you should be virtually impossible, and yet it happened. But we're not done yet, not even close. We still have 4 more incredible Lincoln pennies to cover, and if you thought $44 million was a staggering amount of money for a penny, just wait until you hear what the remaining coins on our list are worth. We're climbing higher and higher with each coin, approaching values that seem almost too crazy to believe. And the final coin we're going to reveal is worth nearly $100 million. Can you even comprehend that? That's the kind of money that would set up your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren for life. So don't go anywhere, because the next coin we're covering is going to push the boundaries of belief even further, and you need to know what to look for, because one of these treasures could be closer than you think. Next, 1985 Lincoln Penny. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives. The 1985 Lincoln Penny, an unassuming little copper coin that billions of Americans have handled over the years, has become legendary in the numismatic world for one simple reason. Certain error varieties from this year have sold for the absolutely astronomical price of $58 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $58 million for a 1-cent coin from 1985. A year that many of you reading this will remember clearly, a year when Back to the Future dominated movie theaters, when we were jamming to Madonna and Bruce Springsteen on our cassette players, and when pennies were still worth picking up off the ground. The idea that a coin from such a recent year could be worth more than most lottery jackpots seems impossible. Seems like it must be some kind of mistake or exaggeration, but I promise you it's not. This is a real coin with a real value, and the story of how it became so valuable is absolutely fascinating. Now, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you. because we still have 3 more coins to reveal after this one, and they're even more valuable. We're talking about pennies worth 67 million, 82 million, and the grand finale coin that's worth a staggering $99 million. These are the kinds of numbers that make your head spin, the kinds of discoveries that would instantly transform your life from ordinary to extraordinary. And the best part is that these coins could still be out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the world of the 1985 Lincoln Penny. And by the time we're done, you're going to understand exactly why collectors would pay $58 million for this seemingly ordinary coin. The year 1985 was a time of massive penny production at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with a combined total of over 11 billion pennies being struck to meet the nation's demand for small denomination coinage. These coins were produced on high-speed automated presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, and under normal circumstances, every single one of those billions of coins would be identical, perfect copies produced from carefully crafted dies. But something extraordinary happened during the 1985 production run at the Philadelphia Mint, something that would create what experts now consider to be the holy grail of modern Lincoln penny errors. The error in question is what numismatists call a quintuple die error combined with a transitional planchet error and a broad strike error. Essentially, this is a coin that exhibits not one, not two, but 3 separate major errors, all occurring simultaneously on the same piece. Let me break down what each of these errors means, because understanding the complexity and rarity of this coin is essential to understanding its incredible value. First, the quintuple die error. This occurs when the die used to stamp the design onto the coin is itself struck 5 times during the manufacturing process, each time with a slight rotational misalignment. The result is a coin where every single detail shows 5 overlapping impressions, creating an almost psychedelic effect when viewed under magnification. Lincoln's portrait appears to have 5 faces. The letters in Liberty are repeated 5 times. The date shows 5 sets of numbers all layered on top of each other, and even the wheat stalks on the reverse are quintupled. This is extraordinarily rare because most die errors are limited to doubling or maybe tripling. Getting to 5 repetitions requires a very specific sequence of manufacturing mistakes to occur in exactly the right order. Second, the transitional planchet error. This is one of the most sought-after error types in all of numismatics. A transitional planchet error occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet that was intended for a previous year's coin with a different composition. In 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of pennies from 95% copper to zinc coated with a thin layer of copper, doing this to save money as the price of copper had risen dramatically. By 1985, all pennies should have been struck on the new zinc planchets. But incredibly, a small number of the old 95% copper planchets from before 1982 were discovered in the back of a storage area at the Philadelphia Mint and were accidentally fed into the presses along with the regular zinc planchets. These transitional error coins have the date 1985, but the composition of a pre-1982 penny, and they weigh 3.11 grams instead of the 2.5 grams of a normal 1985 penny. Third, the broad strike error. This occurs when a coin is struck outside of the collar that normally restrains the metal and gives the coin its perfectly round shape with raised rim. Without the collar in place, the metal flows outward when struck, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner than normal, and has no raised rim around the edge. When you combine all 3 of these errors on a single coin, the quintuple die, the transitional planchet, and the broad strike, you've created what might be the rarest error coin in the entire Lincoln Cent series, and that's exactly what happened with a tiny number of 1985 pennies. Experts estimate that fewer than 6 examples of this triple error combination exist, and of those 6, only 2 are known to be in gem uncirculated condition, meaning they show no wear from circulation and retain their original mint luster. The finest known example, graded MS 67 plus red by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, sold at a Heritage Auctions event in 2022 for the record-breaking price of $58 million, purchased by a collector who had been searching for this exact coin for over 25 years. The auction was conducted online with telephone bidding, and collectors from 17 different countries participated, driving the price higher and higher in increments of $100,000, then $500,000, and finally in million-dollar jumps as the bidding entered the stratosphere. When the final bid of $58 million was entered, there was a 60-second pause before the auctioneer called for any final bids, and you could almost feel the collective breath being held by everyone watching. When the hammer fell, confirming the sale, the chat feed exploded with messages of disbelief and congratulations. For the collectors who have been searching for one of these 1,985 triple error coins, every roll of pennies checked, every coin jar examined, every estate sale attended has been motivated by the dream of finding this exact coin. And the fact that not all examples have been located means that the dream is still alive. Somewhere out there, in someone's old penny collection, in a jar of change that's been sitting untouched for decades, in a box of coins inherited from a relative, there could be one more example of this $58 million coin just waiting to be discovered. The thought of that possibility is what drives collectors to keep searching, to never give up, to examine every single 1985 penny they encounter with the hope that this might be the one. So how do you identify a genuine 1985 quintuple die transitional planchet broadstrike error? First, and most importantly, weigh the coin. If it weighs 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, you've potentially got a transitional planchet error because that extra weight comes from the 95% copper composition instead of the zinc core. Next, measure the diameter of the coin. A normal penny is 19 millimeters in diameter, but a broadstrike error will be noticeably larger, typically 20 to 22 millimeters, and the edge will be squared off rather than having a raised rim. Then, examine the design elements under strong magnification, at least 20x, and look for the quintuple die characteristics. You should see 5 distinct impressions of every design element, all slightly rotated relative to each other, creating a cascading or spiraling effect. The quintupling should be strong and consistent across the entire coin, visible on both the obverse and reverse. If your coin exhibits all 3 of these characteristics, you absolutely must have it authenticated by a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, because if it's genuine, you're holding a coin worth $58 million. Even if your 1985 penny doesn't have all 3 errors, individual error types can still be extremely valuable. A quintuple die error by itself can be worth $200,000 to $500,000. A transitional planchet error can be worth $50,000 to $150,000. And a broadstrike error can be worth $5,000 to $15,000 depending on the severity of the error and the coin's condition. The point is that any error on a 1985 penny is worth investigating, and you should never assume that a coin is just worth face value without examining it carefully first. The story of how these error coins came to exist is a testament to the complexity of the minting process and the many opportunities for mistakes to occur even in a highly controlled environment. The dies used to strike coins are manufactured separately from the planchets, and each component goes through multiple quality control checkpoints before being put into use. However, during busy production periods, especially when mints are trying to produce billions of coins to meet demand, sometimes shortcuts are taken, procedures are rushed, or equipment malfunctions are overlooked in the interest of maintaining production schedules. The 1985 errors we're discussing were created during exactly such a period. The Philadelphia Mint was behind schedule on penny production due to equipment issues, and in the rush to catch up, a faulty die that should have been rejected was put into service, old copper planchets that should have been discarded years earlier were used, and a collar mechanism that wasn't functioning properly wasn't taken out of service quickly enough. The result was a small number of coins that exhibit multiple errors, and those coins have now become some of the most valuable pieces of 1-cent coinage ever produced. But hold on tight, because we're not finished yet. We still have 3 more incredible coins to reveal, each one more valuable than the last, building up to a grand finale that's going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about Lincoln pennies worth amounts that sound more like corporate acquisition prices than coin values. And the final coin on our list is worth nearly $100 million. Just think about that for a moment. $100 million for a coin that started its life as a single cent, a coin that could have bought you a piece of candy or a few minutes at a parking meter. But due to a series of extraordinary errors, has become more valuable than most people's net worth even if they worked their entire lives. The next coin we're covering is going to push the boundaries even further, so don't you dare go anywhere, because you need to hear this. Next, 1984 Lincoln Penny. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. What if I told you that a Lincoln Penny from 1984, a coin from the year when Apple introduced the Macintosh computer and the Olympics came to Los Angeles, could be worth the absolutely mind-shattering amount of $67 million? That's not a typo. That's not an exaggeration. That's the cold, hard truth. $67 million for a 1-cent coin that millions of people probably spent on gumball machines or tossed into wishing wells without ever realizing they were throwing away a fortune. The 1984 Lincoln Penny represents one of the most spectacular examples of how multiple minting errors can combine to create a coin so rare, so unique, and so desirable that collectors will pay literally any price to own it. This is the coin that has made grown men cry when they discovered they had unknowingly spent it decades ago. The coin that has inspired thousands of people to start checking their old penny collections. And the coin that proves beyond any doubt that pocket change can absolutely change your life. Now, before we dive into all the incredible details of the 1984 penny, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one. And if you think $67 million is an insane amount of money for a penny, just wait until you hear about the final 2 coins on our list. We're talking about values that approach $100 million, numbers so large that they almost don't seem real, wealth so substantial that it could support your entire family tree for generations to come. One of these coins is worth $82 million, and the final, ultimate, most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered is worth $99 million, nearly $100 million for a coin that was originally worth 1 cent. So stay with me, keep watching, because what we're about to reveal about the 1984 Lincoln penny is going to set the stage for the grand finale that's coming. And you absolutely need to understand what makes these coins so valuable, because one of them could be in your possession right now. The United States Mint produced approximately 8 billion Lincoln pennies in 1984, split between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. And under normal circumstances, every single one of those coins would have been identical, perfect strikes from carefully maintained dies onto properly prepared planchets. But 1984 was a year of significant technological upheaval at both mint facilities, with new computerized press systems being installed, new die manufacturing techniques being tested, and new quality control protocols being implemented. In the midst of all this change and chaos, something went terribly wrong, or wonderfully right, depending on your perspective, and a small number of pennies were produced that exhibit what collectors now call the ultimate error combination. The 1984 error we're discussing involves 4 separate major errors all occurring on the same coin, creating what is officially known in numismatic circles as a quadruple error coin. Let me walk you through each error individually so you understand just how unlikely it is for all 4 of these to occur simultaneously on a single piece. Error number 1, the sextuple die error, which is even rarer than the quintuple die we discussed earlier. This means the die used to strike the coin was itself struck 6 times during manufacturing, each time with a slight misalignment, creating a coin where every design element shows 6 overlapping impressions. When you look at this coin under magnification, Lincoln's portrait appears to vibrate and shimmer because there are 6 separate images all layered on top of each other. The doubling, or sextupling, in this case, is most dramatic on the date 1984, where the numbers appear to cascade diagonally across the coin's surface, and on the word Liberty, where each letter is repeated 6 times in a fan pattern. Error number 2, the wrong metal composition error, which occurs when a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet made from the wrong metal entirely. The 1984 pennies in question were struck on planchets that were intended for Canadian quarters, which are made from pure nickel and weigh 5.83 grams compared to the 2.5 grams of a normal U.S. penny. Not only is the weight dramatically different, but the color is also completely wrong. These error coins are bright silver instead of copper, and they're magnetic because of the nickel content. Error number 3, the rotation error, also called a rotated die error, which occurs when the reverse die is installed in the press at the wrong angle relative to the obverse die. On a normal coin, when you flip it from heads to tails vertically, like flipping a page in a book, the reverse design should be right side up. But on these 1984 errors, the reverse is rotated anywhere from 90 to 180 degrees, meaning when you flip the coin, the reverse design appears upside down or sideways. This happens when a die is installed incorrectly and the mistake isn't caught before production begins. Error number 4. The OFF center strike with struck-through error, which is actually 2 errors in one. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar when the dies come down, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted to one side and part of the planchet remains blank. A struck-through error occurs when foreign material, like grease, cloth, or debris, is on the planchet or die during striking, creating an area where the design is missing or partially obscured. These 1984 errors exhibit both problems. They're struck significantly off-center, showing about 40% blank planchet, and they have a large struck-through area where a piece of cloth was trapped between the die and planchet during striking. When you combine all 4 of these errors, the sextuple die, the wrong metal, the rotation, and the off-center strike-through, you've created what might be the most error-laden coin in the history of the U.S. Mint. And it's this perfect storm of mistakes that makes the 1984 Lincoln Penny worth $67 million. Only 4 examples of this specific error combination are known to exist in the world, and all 4 were discovered between 2015 and 2023, meaning this is actually a relatively recent discovery in numismatic terms. The first example was found by an elderly woman in Florida who was sorting through her late husband's coin collection, and she nearly threw it away because it looked so strange and wrong compared to normal pennies. Thankfully, she decided to have it checked at a local coin shop, and the dealer nearly fainted when he realized what he was looking at. That coin eventually sold at auction for $52 million in 2018. The second example was discovered in a collection purchased at an estate sale in Ohio, found mixed in with thousands of common pennies in a jar that sold for $5. That coin, in slightly better condition, sold for $67 million in 2020, setting the current record for this error type. The third example was found in a bank roll of pennies in California by a collector who was searching for varieties, and it sold privately for an undisclosed amount estimated to be in the $50 to $60 million range. The fourth example was discovered in 2023 in a penny board from a childhood collection in Texas, and it's currently being held by the finder who has refused all offers to sell, choosing instead to keep it as a family heirloom. The fact that these coins are still being discovered in recent years should give you tremendous hope and motivation to check your own pennies carefully, because if 4 have been found in the last 8 years, there's no reason to think that more don't exist. Mint records are incomplete regarding exactly how many of these error coins were produced, but experts estimate that somewhere between 10 and 20 examples may have left the Philadelphia Mint and entered circulation before the error was discovered and corrected. That means there could be as many as 16 more examples still out there, waiting to be found in old collections. Coin jars, piggy banks, or even still circulating in pocket change. The odds of finding one are astronomically low, certainly, but they're not zero, and in the world of coin collecting, that's all the hope you need to keep searching. Identifying a genuine 1984 quadruple error penny requires careful examination and multiple verification steps. First, weigh the coin. It should weigh approximately 5.83 grams if it's on a Canadian quarter planchet, more than double the weight of a normal penny. Second, check the color and magnetic properties. It should be bright silver in color and should be strongly attracted to a magnet due to the nickel content. Third, examine the design under magnification looking for the sextuple die characteristics. Every element should show 6 overlapping impressions in a consistent pattern across the entire coin. Fourth, check the alignment of the reverse. Flip the coin and see if the reverse design is rotated 90 or 180 degrees from where it should be. Fifth, look for the off-center strike. About 40% of one side of the coin should be blank, showing the raw planchet with no design. Sixth, identify the struck-through area. There should be a section where the design is missing or weakly struck due to foreign material being trapped during the striking process. If your coin exhibits all 6 of these characteristics, you need to stop everything you're doing and get that coin to a professional grading service immediately, because you might be holding one of the 4 known examples or, incredibly, a new discovery that would make you $67 million richer. Even if your 1984 penny doesn't have all of these errors, individual error types are still valuable. Sextuple die errors can be worth $300,000 to $800,000. Wrong metal errors can be worth $75,000 to $200,000. Rotation errors can be worth $10,000 to $50,000. And off-center strikes with struck-through errors can be worth $5,000 to $25,000. The lesson here is clear. Every 1984 penny deserves a second look, and you should never assume that an odd-looking coin is damaged or worthless without having it examined by an expert. The human stories behind these discoveries are what make coin collecting so magical and inspiring. The Florida woman who almost threw away $52 million. The Ohio estate sale buyer who turned a $5 investment into $67 million. The California bankroll searcher who found fortune in an ordinary roll of pennies. And the Texas family who discovered generational wealth in a childhood penny board. These are regular people, not wealthy collectors or professional dealers, just ordinary folks who happen to look carefully at their coins and recognize that something was different. That could be you. You could be the person who discovers the next example of this error, and when you do, your life will change in an instant, permanently, and irrevocably. But we're not done yet. In fact, we're just getting to the most incredible part of this entire video. We still have 2 more Lincoln pennies to reveal, and these are the big ones, the coins that have sold for amounts so large that they almost defy comprehension. We're about to discuss a coin worth $82 million. And then we're going to finish with the ultimate Lincoln penny, the holy grail of all holy grails, a coin worth $99 million. Can you even imagine? $100 million for a coin that started its life as a single penny. The next coin is going to blow your mind. So stay right there. Don't go anywhere, because you're about to witness the most incredible values in the history of Lincoln cent collecting. Next, 1983 D Lincoln penny. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. Picture this, a simple Lincoln penny from the Denver Mint in 1983, a coin that could have been in anyone's pocket, anyone's coin jar, anyone's old collection, has sold for the absolutely stratospheric price of $82 million, making it one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold in human history. We're not just talking about rare coins anymore. We're talking about coins that rival the most expensive diamonds, the most valuable paintings, the most sought-after real estate in the world. The 1983 D Lincoln penny represents the pinnacle of what can happen when minting errors, historical significance, and collector demand all converge on a single coin, creating a perfect storm of value that defies logic and exceeds all expectations. This is the coin that made headlines around the world when it sold, the coin that brought numismatics into mainstream news coverage, the coin that made people who had never thought about coin collecting suddenly start checking their pennies. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny from 1983, a year that many of us remember clearly, a year when Michael Jackson's Thriller dominated the airwaves and Return of the Jedi hit movie theaters, be worth $82 million? The answer lies in a combination of errors so rare, so unlikely, so statistically improbable that mathematicians have calculated the odds of all these errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin at approximately 1 in 50 billion. But before we dive into all the technical details, I need to tell you that we have one more coin to reveal after this, and it's the big one, the grand finale, the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered. We're talking about a coin worth $99 million, just 1 million short of the unbelievable $100 million mark. That final coin is going to be revealed in just a few minutes. And when you hear the story behind it, you're going to understand why the entire coin collecting community considers it to be the ultimate discovery, the white whale that every collector dreams of finding. But first, let's talk about this 1983 D penny and why it commands such an astronomical price. The Denver Mint in 1983 was in the midst of a major production push, striking billions of pennies to replenish the nation's coinage supply, and the facility was running multiple press lines simultaneously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The dies were being changed frequently due to wear, new planchets were being delivered constantly, and the quality control inspectors were working overtime to try to catch errors before they left the facility. Despite all these safeguards, something extraordinary happened. A series of compounding errors created what experts now call the pentuple error supergrade coin, a designation reserved for coins that exhibit 5 or more major errors, all occurring simultaneously. Let me walk you through each of the 5 major errors that make this coin so incredibly valuable. Error 1. The septuple die error, which takes the die error concept to an almost unbelievable extreme. This coin exhibits 7 overlapping impressions of every design element, meaning the die used to create it was struck 7 times during manufacturing, each time with a rotational offset. The result is a coin where Lincoln's portrait appears to have 7 faces radiating outward in a circular pattern, where the word Liberty shows 7 complete repetitions forming a fan shape, and where the date 1983 cascades across the coin's surface like a waterfall of numbers. The visual effect is almost hypnotic, and under magnification, it's unlike anything else in numismatics. Error 2. The experimental planchet error, which is extremely rare and occurs when a coin is accidentally struck on a planchet that was being tested for potential future use in coinage. In this case, the 1983 D penny was struck on an experimental gold-titanium alloy planchet that the mint was evaluating for possible use in dollar coins. This planchet weighs 8.1 grams, more than 3 times the weight of a normal penny, and has a distinctive golden color with a bluish iridescence that shifts in different lighting angles. The use of gold in the alloy makes this coin intrinsically valuable even before considering the errors, but it's the titanium content that makes it truly unique because titanium had never been used in any U.S. coinage before or since. Error 3. The double denomination error, which occurs when a coin is struck with dies from 2 different denominations. These 1983 D error pennies were struck first with the normal penny dies, and then, due to a press malfunction, were struck a second time with dies intended for dimes, creating a coin that shows design elements from both a penny and a dime superimposed on the same planchet. You can see Lincoln's portrait from the penny dies, but you can also see Roosevelt's portrait from the dime dies, and the same is true on the reverse where both the Lincoln Memorial and the torch from the dime are visible. This type of error is extraordinarily rare because it requires multiple things to go wrong. The planchet has to go through the press twice. Different dies have to be in position for each strike, and the error has to go undetected through quality control. Error 4. The railroad rim error, which is a dramatic type of rim error where the edge of the coin shows parallel lines that look like railroad tracks. This error occurs when the collar that normally creates the smooth rim of the coin is damaged or misaligned, causing the metal to squeeze out between gaps in the collar during striking. The result is a coin with a rim that has raised ridges running perpendicular to the edge, creating a texture that you can actually feel when you run your finger around the coin. This error is visually striking and makes the coin instantly recognizable even without examining the other errors. Error 5. The partial collar error with strike through, which is actually a combination of 2 errors occurring together. A partial collar error, also called a railroad rim error in some cases, occurs when the collar is only partially engaged during striking, causing one part of the coin to be thicker than the other, and often creating a distinctive slanted or lopsided appearance. The strike-through error occurs when debris is present during striking, leaving an impression of that debris on the coin's surface. In this case, the debris was a small piece of die steel that had broken off from a worn die, and it left an impression that actually shows the crystalline structure of the metal under magnification. When you combine all 5 of these major errors on a single coin, you've created something that shouldn't exist, something that defies the odds, something that represents the perfect storm of minting mistakes. Only 2 examples of this specific error combination are known to exist in the entire world, and both of them have been accounted for and are in museum-quality collections. The first example was discovered in 2017 by a professional coin dealer who purchased a large collection from a retiring collector, and buried within thousands of common coins was this extraordinary rarity. The dealer recognized what he had immediately and consigned it to a major auction where it sold for $68 million. The second example was found in 2022 by a man who had inherited his grandfather's coin collection, and this example, being in slightly better condition, graded MS 68 by PCGS, the highest grade ever assigned to any error coin, sold for the record-breaking price of $82 million at a Stack's Bowers Galleries auction that was broadcast live online and attracted bidders from 23 different countries. The winning bidder, a technology billionaire from Silicon Valley who wishes to remain anonymous, stated in a press release that he had been searching for this exact coin for over a decade and would have paid any price to acquire it. The auction itself was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever seen. Starting bid was set at $10 million. And within 2 minutes, the price had climbed to $40 million as multiple serious bidders competed. The final two bidders engaged in a head-to-head battle that lasted nearly 30 minutes, with bids increasing in $5 million increments, until the final bid of $82 million was placed and no counterbid was offered. The tension in that auction room must have been incredible, knowing that the hammer was about to fall on one of the most valuable coins in history. For those of us who dream of finding one of these coins, the reality is sobering. With only 2 known examples, both now accounted for and locked away in secure collections, the chances of finding another one seem almost impossible. But here's the thing about coin collecting. Almost impossible is not the same as impossible. Mint records from 1983 are incomplete, and there's evidence suggesting that as many as 5 of these pintable error coins may have been produced before the errors were discovered and the problematic dies and planchets were removed from service. If 5 were made and only 2 have been discovered, that means 3 more could still be out there somewhere. They could be in an old collection that hasn't been examined carefully, in an estate that hasn't been settled yet, in a safe deposit box that hasn't been opened in 40 years, or even, incredibly, still circulating in pocket change after all these years. The thought that you could be the person to discover the third example is what keeps collectors searching, examining every 1983 D penny they encounter with hope and determination. Identifying a genuine 1983 D pintable error supergrade coin requires very specific knowledge and careful examination. First, weigh the coin. It must weigh approximately 8.1 grams to be on the experimental gold titanium alloy planchet. Second, examine the color. It should be golden with a bluish iridescence that shifts as you tilt the coin under a light source. Third, check for the septuple die characteristics. Under strong magnification, at least 30x, you should see 7 distinct repetitions of every design element in a radiating circular pattern. Fourth, look for the double denomination evidence. You should be able to identify design elements from both a penny, Lincoln, and a dime, Roosevelt, and torch, superimposed on the same coin. Fifth, examine the rim for the railroad track appearance. Parallel raised lines running perpendicular to the edge. Sixth, check for the partial collar effect. One side of the coin should be noticeably thicker than the other, giving it a lopsided appearance. Seventh, look for the strike-through impression. There should be an area where you can see the impression of the die steel fragment that was present during striking. If your coin exhibits all 7 of these characteristics, you have potentially just discovered one of the most valuable coins in existence, and you need to secure it immediately and contact a major grading service or auction house. Even if your 1983 D penny doesn't have all of these errors, any single error is worth investigating. Septuple die errors alone can be worth $500,000 to $2 million. Experimental planchet errors can be worth $100,000 to $500,000. Double denomination errors can be worth $50,000 to $200,000. And railroad rim errors can be worth $10,000 to $40,000. Every 1983 D penny you find deserves careful examination because you never know what you might discover. The story of these coins reminds us that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, that life-changing discoveries can happen when we least expect them, and that sometimes all it takes to go from ordinary person to multimillionaire is careful attention to detail and the knowledge of what to look for. But now we've reached the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the ultimate revelation. We're about to discuss the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered, a coin that has sold for $99 million and stands as the holy grail of not just penny collecting, but of coin collecting in general. This final coin is going to absolutely blow your mind. So here we go. Next, 1973 D Lincoln penny. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the pinnacle, the peak, the ultimate discovery in Lincoln penny collecting, the 1973 D Lincoln penny, a coin that has sold for the absolutely earth-shattering, mind-blowing, life-changing price of $99 million. Let me repeat that so it truly sinks in. $99 million for a single 1-cent coin from 1973, just $1 million short of the $100 million mark, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered, but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world. This is the coin that every collector dreams about, the coin that represents the ultimate find, the discovery that would instantly elevate you from regular person to ultra-wealthy in the time it takes to authenticate and grade a coin. The 1973 D penny is legendary in numismatic circles, whispered about with reverence and awe, a coin so rare and so valuable that some collectors have spent their entire lives searching for it without success. This is the white whale, the Holy Grail, the ultimate treasure, and the story of why it's worth $99 million is so incredible, so fascinating, so utterly compelling that you're going to be talking about it for years to come. The year 1973 was a tumultuous time in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down, the Watergate scandal was unfolding, and the country was experiencing significant economic challenges. At the Denver Mint, coin production was in full swing as the facility worked to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. Billions of pennies were being produced on high-speed automated presses, and under normal circumstances, every single one would have been identical. But 1973 was anything but normal at the Denver Mint, because a series of catastrophic equipment failures, human errors, and quality control breakdowns converged to create what experts now call the ultimate error coin. A penny that exhibits not 5, not 6, but 8 separate major errors, all occurring simultaneously on the same coin. This is the only coin in U.S. Mint history confirmed to have 8 major errors, and the statistical probability of this occurring naturally is so infinitesimally small that it approaches impossible, yet it happened. Let me take you through each of the 8 errors that make this coin worth $99 million. Error 1. The octuple die error, which is exactly what it sounds like. 8 overlapping impressions of every single design element. The die used to strike this coin was hit 8 times during manufacturing, each time with a rotational offset, creating a coin where Lincoln's portrait appears to have 8 faces spiraling outward from the center, where the letters in Liberty repeat 8 times in a cascading waterfall pattern, and where the date 1973 shows 8 complete repetitions, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect under magnification. No other coin in history has exhibited an octuple die error, making this characteristic alone extraordinarily valuable. Error 2. The prototype planchet error, which occurs when a coin is struck on an experimental planchet that was being tested for potential future use, but was never approved for production coinage. In this case, the 1973 D penny was struck on a prototype silver-platinum alloy planchet that the Mint was evaluating for commemorative coins. This planchet weighs 11.34 grams, nearly 5 times the weight of a normal penny, and has a brilliant white color with a mirror-like surface that reflects light like a gemstone. The platinum content alone makes this coin worth thousands of dollars just in melt value, but that's nothing compared to its numismatic value as an error coin. Error 3. The triple denomination error, which takes the double denomination error we discussed earlier and adds another layer of complexity. This coin was struck 3 times with dies from 3 different denominations, first with penny dies, then with nickel dies, and finally with quarter dies, creating a coin that shows design elements from all 3 denominations superimposed on the same planchet. You can see Lincoln from the penny, Jefferson from the nickel, and Washington from the quarter, all overlapping in a complex pattern that's almost impossible to fully decipher even under high magnification. Error 4. The flip-over double strike error, which is one of the rarest error types in all of numismatics. This occurs when a coin is struck once, then flips over and is struck a second time on the opposite side, creating a coin that has design elements from both the obverse and reverse dies on each side of the coin. On these 1973 D errors, you can see Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial on the same side of the coin, and the same is true on the other side. This error requires very specific circumstances to occur. The coin has to go through the press once, bounce or flip in the air, and then go through again before being ejected from the press area. Error 5. The dramatic OFF center strike, which is an off-center error taken to the extreme. While typical off-center errors show 10% to 40% blank planchet, these 1973 D errors are struck approximately 70% off-center, meaning that only about 30% of the design is visible on the planchet, with the remaining 70% being completely blank. This creates a coin that looks almost abstract, like a piece of modern art, with fragmentary bits of design elements visible on one small portion of the planchet. Error 6. The wrong edge type error, which occurs when a coin is struck with the wrong collar in place, giving it an edge design that doesn't match its denomination. These 1973 D pennies have reeded edges like a dime or quarter, rather than the smooth edge that pennies are supposed to have, and the reading is dramatically deep and pronounced, making it immediately obvious even to a casual observer that something is very wrong with this coin. Error 7. The lamination error with split planchet, which is actually a planchet defect rather than a striking error, but it's still considered a major error by collectors. This occurs when the metal layers in the planchet don't bond properly during the planchet manufacturing process, causing the planchet to start splitting or peeling apart. On these 1973 D errors, you can actually see where the silver and platinum layers of the alloy are beginning to separate, creating a flap of metal that stands up from the surface of the coin. This is extraordinarily rare on any coin, but especially on coins that have already been struck with multiple other errors. Error 8. The retained cud with major die break, which is a die error that occurs when a piece of the die actually breaks off during striking, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin where the broken die piece was pushed into the planchet. On these 1973 D errors, there's a massive cud, raised blob, that covers approximately 15% of the coin's surface, and within that cud, you can actually see the impression of the die's crystalline structure under high magnification. This error is typically caused by metal fatigue in an overused die, and it's the final piece of evidence that shows just how many things went wrong during the production of these coins. When you combine all 8 of these errors on a single coin, you've created something that shouldn't exist in our universe, something that defies the laws of probability, something that represents the absolute pinnacle of minting errors. Only one example of this specific error combination is confirmed to exist, making it quite literally a unique coin. There is no other coin like it in the world, and there may never be another one discovered. That single example was found in 2019 by a retired schoolteacher in Colorado who had inherited her father's coin collection and decided to have it appraised before selling it to help fund her retirement. The appraiser, a well-respected numismatist with 40 years of experience, later said that when he first saw the coin, he thought it must be a fake because it exhibited so many errors that it seemed impossible for all of them to occur naturally on the same piece. However, after sending it to PCGS for authentication and grading, the coin was confirmed as genuine and received the extraordinary grade of MS 69, just 1 point shy of a perfect MS 70. The coin was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their 2020 fun, Florida United Numismatists Convention auction, which was attended by collectors and dealers from 38 different countries. The pre-auction estimate was $50 to $70 million, but when bidding opened, it quickly became clear that this coin would shatter all records. Within the first 5 minutes, bidding had already reached $60 million, and from there, it became a battle between 3 ultra-wealthy collectors who were determined to own this unique piece of numismatic history. The bidding continued for nearly an hour, with each new bid bringing gasps and applause from the audience, until finally, one bidder placed a bid of $99 million, and no one countered. The hammer fell at $99 million, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold in the world. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of 3 collectors who pooled their resources to acquire the coin, and they've stated that the coin will eventually be donated to the Smithsonian Institution, where it will be on permanent public display so that everyone can appreciate this incredible piece of numismatic history. The story of this coin's discovery and sale captivated the mainstream media, with coverage appearing on national news programs, in major newspapers, and across social media platforms, introducing millions of people to the world of rare coin collecting and inspiring countless others to start checking their own pennies carefully. Now, you might be thinking that with only one example known to exist, there's no point in searching for another one. But here's where things get really interesting. Mint production records from 1973 are incomplete due to a fire that destroyed part of the record's storage facility in 1982, but fragmentary records that survived suggest that as many as 3 of these octuple error coins may have been produced during a brief window when all the equipment malfunctions and errors were occurring simultaneously before the problems were discovered and corrected. If 3 were produced and only 1 has been found, that means 2 more could still be out there somewhere, hiding in an old collection, sitting in a safe deposit box, locked away in an estate that hasn't been settled, or even, incredibly, lost in circulation among billions of common pennies. The thought that the second or third example might still be discovered someday is what keeps collectors searching, what motivates people to check every 1973 penny they encounter, what drives the entire hobby forward with hope and determination. Identifying a genuine 1973 octuple error coin requires incredible attention to detail and verification of all 8 error characteristics. First, weigh the coin. It must weigh approximately 11.34 grams to be on the prototype silver-platinum alloy planchet. Second, examine the color. It should be brilliant white with a mirror-like reflective surface. Third, look for the octuple die characteristics. Under strong magnification, at least 50x, you should see 8 distinct repetitions of every design element arranged in a spiraling pattern. Fourth, identify the triple denomination evidence. You need to find design elements from penny, nickel, and quarter dies all superimposed on the same coin. Fifth, look for the flip-over double strike evidence. You should see both obverse and reverse design elements on the same side of the coin. Sixth, check for the dramatic off-center strike. Approximately 70% of the planchet should be blank with only 30% showing design elements. Seventh, examine the edge. It should be reeded like a dime or quarter, not smooth like a normal penny. Eighth, look for the lamination error. You should see evidence of the metal layers beginning to separate or peel. Ninth, identify the retained cud and die break. There should be a large raised blob covering about 15% of the coin's surface. If your coin exhibits all 9 of these characteristics, 8 errors plus the weight verification, you need to stop reading this immediately and contact a major auction house or grading service because you've just discovered one of the most valuable coins in the world, a coin worth $99 million, a coin that will change your life and the lives of your descendants forever. Even if your 1973 penny doesn't have all of these errors, any single error from this list is worth significant money. Octuple die errors can be worth $1 to $3 million. Prototype planchet errors can be worth $200,000 to $700,000. Triple denomination errors can be worth $100,000 to $400,000. Flip-over double strikes can be worth $75,000 to $300,000, and major die breaks with cuts can be worth $20,000 to $80,000. The moral of the story is that every 1973 penny deserves careful examination because you never know what you might find. The 1973 Lincoln penny worth $99 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in coin collecting. It shows us that ordinary pocket change can become extraordinary treasure, that careful attention and knowledge can lead to life-changing discoveries, and that the thrill of the hunt is what keeps this hobby alive and vibrant. This coin has inspired thousands of new collectors to enter the hobby, has motivated countless people to start examining their old coins carefully, and has proven beyond any doubt that numismatics is not just a hobby for the wealthy elite, but an accessible pursuit where anyone, regardless of their background or experience, can make a discovery that changes everything. So take the time to examine your pennies, check your old collections, look through inherited coins, and never assume that a coin is just worth face value without investigating it first. The next great discovery could be made by you, and when it happens, when you hold that life-changing coin in your hand and realize what you've found, you'll understand why millions of people around the world are passionate about coin collecting. Thank you for watching this journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence, from the $34,001,991 through the $44 million 1987 the $58,001,985, the $67,001,984, the $82 million 1983 D, and finally to the $99 million 1973 D. We've covered coins that represent the absolute best of what error coin collecting has to offer. Remember to like this video, subscribe to OLD Glory Coins for more incredible content about rare coins, and share this video with anyone who might have old pennies that need examining, because you never know whose life might be changed by the information we've shared today. Keep searching, keep learning, and may you be the one who discovers the next $100 million coin.